right, and welcome to Fast Break Breakfast NBA Podcast. My name is Keith, here alone for a solo interview episode. The full episode with John and Chuck should be out on Thursday, probably afternoon or late afternoon, as we have been doing recently. Monday in the NBA was MLK Day, bunch of games all day, a lot of fun, unless you were cheering for one of the teams that lost, or if you were the Houston Rockets and you were trying to make a trade, but the league office was closed and you couldn't execute such trade and had to cut a player you just signed. So the Rockets signed James Nunnally to a 10-day contract, kind of a nice wing, guy who hit a big three for him a couple games ago. But they also wanted to sign Kenneth Faried to have him available to play on Monday night. They didn't have enough roster spots because they hadn't done anything with Carmelo Anthony, who was still on the roster. So what do the Rockets do when they need to get rid of a player? They call up the Chicago Bulls, who are willing to just help out the Rockets for like $100,000 cash, just for the sake of it. At this point, they're pretty much just, laundering money for Daryl Morey. But the Rockets want to do this trade, to make a roster spot to sign Kenneth Faried, who was waived by the Nets. But it turns out, again, the league office is closed on MLK Day, so they can't do it. So they have to cut James Nunnally. And Mike D'Antoni's all angry about it. Thinks it's a raw deal. The players are playing, the league's open, but it's an office holiday. But also, on the other hand, it's kind of foreseeable. Maybe you shouldn't have had Michael Carter-Williams on the roster, who you already paid the Bulls to take off your hands, and Carmelo Anthony, who you hadn't done anything with, who's just been sitting there until you finally decided you needed a Kenneth Faried. You needed a manimal to play for you on Monday night, MLK Day, and the offices were closed. So they had to cut James Nunnally, and they got rid of Carmelo. Where does Carmelo go? Personally, I think my favorite team, the Grizzlies, should sign him just for the giggles, just to be hilarious and make the league national news once again. But once he clears waivers, everyone assumes he's going to the Lakers, who haven't been doing super great with LeBron being injured, and now Lonzo Ball is injured. Hopefully Rondo is coming back later this week, but the Lakers are playing right now as I am talking into this microphone, so I'm not sure how the Brandon Ingram at point guard experiment is going to go. Anyway, today's episode, it's a crossover episode with the Locked On Raptors with Sean Woodley. He asked me on his podcast, and I was like, yes, if I can use it also for my podcast. So that's what we're doing here. We talk about the Raptors. He asks me a lot about Kawhi Leonard in my opinions of how the Raptors are dealing with that. We also talk about the Grizzlies and Bruno Caboclo, the newest Grizzly who signed a 10-day contract. They're going to have to get rid of him if they want to claim Carmelo in the next couple 24 hours. But we talk about all that with Sean. If you want to support our show, you can do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. I think the most popular way to support the show is $3 a month. You join our Slack chat where we talk about everything around the clock. It's a lot of fun getting to know those listeners in there. Probably our biggest listeners, the ones we've kind of developed a relationship with. So if you want to get more basketball, get more of John and Chuck, get more of me, you get that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Sign up for that $3 a month, the Slack chat. Get in there. You can also play fantasy basketball with us, and play the Pickle Pick'em, which we do with that. All kinds of good stuff. Patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right, now for the Locked On Raptors episode. Don't be confused. It's a crossover.
All right, it's Sean Woodley here from Locked On Raptors, joined by Keith Parrish of Fast Break Breakfast. Keith, how are you, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great, Sean, and I got to say, I'm stealing this interview for my own show, so welcome to Fast Break Breakfast, Sean Woodley, the host of Locked On Raptors.
Thank you for having me on your podcast. This is just a perfect connection between two people who were desperately looking to find someone to do a podcast with today. That we both needed one up, and it happened to be a perfect match. So here we go. The Raptors played the Grizzlies on Saturday. I guess that's kind of the the reason to tee all this off is because you're a Grizzlies guy, I'm a Raptors guy. There's some shared history between these two teams, I guess. Naismith Cups and all the like back before the Grizzlies moved.
Right, yeah.
But they're in extremely different positions now, and then I guess that was illustrated by the game on Saturday where the Raptors won by 29 and didn't even have to play Kawhi Leonard. And all right, this is where I want to start because there was a piece written today by Eric Corrine of The Athletic, very good columnist. Subscribe to The Athletic if you have the means. It's great, and Eric's like almost worth the subscription alone. He wrote about Kawhi and the resting, and he sat out a game against the Grizzlies that was not on a back-to-back. It's the first time he's done that this season. He's mostly just sat out the second halves of back-to-backs or the first half of back-to-backs, depending on matchups and all this stuff. And it was a little curious. There was obviously the easy jokes made. It was like minus 30 in Toronto that day, and the jokes were just like, "Oh yeah, Kawhi, stay at home, buddy. You don't got to come for this one. Don't even look outside." In all part of the recruitment effort. I didn't actually catch the game live. I don't know if he was on the bench or not. I know he was there for the Suns game on Thursday, but like Eric's piece talked a lot about how. It's a little weird. It's a little icky with the way the Raptors are kind of dealing with Kawhi and kind of putting him on like this sort of separate trajectory than everyone else. You got Fred VanVleet, who's like icing his back every time he's not on the court. You got Kyle Lowry playing 40 minutes after playing 50 minutes in an overtime game earlier this week. And on Thursday, he was supposed to rest and he didn't. And it's been a little weird that Kawhi has kind of had this preferential treatment. Or is it weird at all? I don't know. I guess this is the kind of the question that I want to throw to you, Keith, because Raptors fans, I think, have kind of accepted that this is part of the deal and all part of the pitch to Kawhi. I'm just kind of curious what the exterior opinion is of it because, I guess it's one of two things. It's like, yeah, obviously they're doing that. It's Kawhi Leonard. Or like, wow, they look pathetic and thirsty and this isn't going to work anyway. How are you viewing all of this as an outsider?
All right. A lot of stuff. Let me go back to the start. First of all, you said, we were desperate to put up a show. I'm just going to point out, not desperate. But if we could do one interview and have that be my show, that's better than doing my show and your show. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I was desperate. Okay. Let's say that.
There you go. I'm like, well, now I can just do this for my show. Also, let's see. Is it weird? No, I don't think it's weird at all. It seems perfect. It seems like a guy in his, he's an expiring free agent or on an expiring contract. They're trying to woo him to this city. He came with baggage. You have to admit, I guess there is weird stuff when you look at that history from him with the Spurs and all that stuff about like maybe the Spurs didn't treat him the way that he and his business associates wanted to be treated. So maybe they're bending over a little bit too far. Maybe that part's weird. From a national perspective, from me sitting at my home in Tennessee watching, no, I don't think it's weird at all. It makes sense. One, because the Raptors are great even when he doesn't play. So they're not costing themselves anything by having him sit. I thought those jokes of him not playing over the weekend in Toronto when you said it was minus 30, I think that's Celsius, but minus.
That's the point. That's the cold point where Celsius and Fahrenheit kind of meet. Which
they sort of meet up. Okay, but still, it was really cold. I thought those jokes were hilarious. Where it was like the Toronto forecast is in like the negative teens as far as my weather app, and they're like, yeah, Kawhi, just go to LA. That's cool. We're good. Suns, Grizzlies, dude, we got this. We don't need you. So no, I don't think it's weird at all. And I think it's, I don't know, I almost feel like you're fishing for stuff if you're worried about it as a Raptors fan. I'm currently living in a house that's burning down as a Grizzlies fan, and you are eating, fancy crepes on your fancy couch and being like, oh, is it bad that we're 20 games over 500 and we're letting this guy not play all the time? Like, come on. You don't treat everyone the same. Fred VanVleet is not Kawhi Leonard. You don't have to treat them the same. This is the problem with the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are some weird, like, hey, everybody can shoot 10 times. You're like, no, it's horrible. It's horrible. You have to run plays for good players and not, it's a mess. But anyway, Eric, I got before you retort, I do have to get this out of the way for my business end.
Yeah.
I always ask my guests about their breakfast.
Oh, right.
So did you have a breakfast today?
Yeah. So my side job requires me to go outside for long periods of time.
You have a side job besides podcasting?
Yeah. It's close to being a lucrative enough business, but just like 4 or 5 days worth of work a week away from that.
That's a little little podcast humor for the Locked On feed.
So yeah, I like my job requires me to go to the outdoors. It also requires me to drive a very long distance. And so I'm not at my car. I try to eat like a light breakfast because I'm not really near anything. Like I'm just like, I just want to stay light, streamlined. So today I only had a meat stick thing. That was my breakfast.
It was like street meat?
No. It was like it's funny. There's this like company that just launched in my hometown, and the guy who runs it, his wife is a teacher at the school at which my girlfriend teaches. So they gave like a bunch of these like meat sticks, just like beef jerky, but like fancy
jerky.
Yeah,
but
like fancier, sort of like heartier beef jerky in stick form. They just gave like 1,000 of these to their school, and then my girlfriend like pilfered the closet and brought a bunch home for me, which was nice of her. So I had that for breakfast. It was not very nourishing or tasty, but it was filling, I guess.
Is this jerky in the shape of a stick, or is there an actual stick like a corn dog, and this is meat on a stick?
No. There's no stick attached to the meat. The meat is the stick.
The meat is the stick.
It's more like a slab, I suppose.
It's not like there's the title for my feed. The meat is the stick. Okay.
Yeah, it's like I'm trying to describe. Like, remember, like
it sounds like a Slim Jim. Do you have a Slim Jim in Toronto? Up in
I don't have Slim Jims, but I think it's kind of along the line of that. Have you ever had a fruit to go? Did you ever have those? There's like a weird Canadian snack as well.
I don't know what that is. No.
Okay, well, it's like these little like rectangular, just like ironed out grapes, essentially. That
sounds like a fruit roll up. Do you have fruit roll ups?
Yeah, but we also had fruit roll ups. Okay. This was like the healthy version of that.
Oh,
I
gotcha.
But this is that, but meat. And yeah, that was my breakfast. It was not great.
That's a good breakfast. Well, we had to get that out of the way. All right, I'm sorry.
I'm honored to be asked about it.
Yeah. So where were you on the Kawhi's weird? Do you think it's weird? Do you think Eric Curran should worry less?
No, I don't think Eric was worrying, by the way. I think it was a very well-balanced article. He got, quotes from, Fred VanVleet, Danny Reed about it and all that stuff. He was just pointing out that it is a little bit weird that he's kind of on this pedestal, and like that's fair. But yeah, I'm not worried. Also, if you're a Raptors fan and you're looking at the schedule and you see that Kawhi sat last Thursday and Saturday, there's a back-to-back coming up this week against the Kings and Pacers, and I think it's kind of gearing up for Kawhi to make his first back-to-back appearance this season in those two games. So this might actually be a good thing in the long run, that they were just kind of like giving him a little bit more leeway against a bad team leading up. Sorry, the Grizzlies are very bad.
Yeah, not great.
Yeah, leading into this like kind of difficult week. So yeah, I'm not worried about it. It's all a long game, and maybe Kawhi is a bit of a hypochondriac. I think I kind of get that sense. And if you want to convince him to stick around, you should definitely give in to his hypochondriac tendencies, I think, and like appreciate them and not get weirded out or like not dismiss them as him being weird about his body. Like, he obviously cares about this stuff. And I don't see any problem with it whatsoever. And again, they're winning all the time when he doesn't play. So I'm with you. I don't think it's that.
He's not doing any of that like day of the game or like an hour before the game being like, guys, you know what, I'm not going to go tonight. Aren't all of these absences, because I don't watch every Raptors game, aren't all these absences pretty well planned ahead of time? Like, none of them have been surprising, right?
Yeah, aside from that Memphis one, you could pretty much circle when he was not going to play.
Yeah. So it just seems like this is the modern NBA. Like, all these teams have these load managements kind of built in for some of their stars, and some of their stars maybe with more concerning histories, and so I don't think it's a big deal. So I feel like the Raptors are actually, managing this season incredibly. The on-the-court product is amazing. When he doesn't play, it gives guys like Pascal Siakam a chance to really shine, and it seems like, again, from my outside perspective, things are going perfect.
I guess the one thing that like Eric mentioned this too, like if he ends up leaving and he just used this season as like a springboard to like boost his value before he became a free agent again, like maybe they'll look kind of stupid in hindsight, but I also don't really agree with that.
That's no way to live your life.
Yeah, like they put in their due diligence and did everything they could this year. And if it doesn't work out, like, hey, you gave it your best shot. And like this was part of the deal anyway when you traded for him, and you knew that. So
yeah. I think if a superstar wants to come bless you with an incredible season and a playoff run, I think you take that. I don't think you were worried about the future of how he was using it to launch himself into something else.
Either way, read the Eric's piece. It's very good, and I probably didn't do it justice talking about it. It's not one-sided by any means. It's very balanced and good.
Can I ask you, Eric? Are there what other, as a Raptors fan, as someone whose the team is going pretty well? What are your worries right now outside of this like drummed up controversy about Kawhi missing games? Are there are you worried about a certain matchup? Like what maybe keeps you up at night while you have this comfortable lead? Or I guess you're trying to chase down the Bucks, but still, like what worries a Raptors fan right now when you're looking at the big picture of this season?
Number one is the weird math at the top of the conference. I just want the Bucks and Raptors to have played the same number of games, so I don't have to deal with this like the better win percentage, but the Raptors are a game and a half ahead thing. That's my biggest concern right now is my brain.
First world NBA problems.
Other than that, it's just like they haven't been healthy at all. And they've had one game this season where they've had everybody available, like everyone that you'd want available. And like I know every team deals with injuries, but it just feels like the Raptors have like every time they kind of get healthy, someone gets hurt again. And now like Fred VanVleet's dealing with weird back stuff, and like he's already got like problems of an old man. And like Kyle Lowry has not been awesome. He was a plus 38 against the Grizzlies, so that's cool. But like his shooting has been off. Everything else has been good. He's like doing Kyle Lowry things. He's taking charges. He's like setting dudes up and passing like prime Steve Nash. That's all great, but he can't hit a shot to save it. I think he's at like 31% from three on the season at this point, which is bizarre considering he's been at like 40 for the last 4 or 5 years, if I recall correctly. So yeah, that's not great, and you want to see that come back around. And then, like, the bench, I guess, is the other thing. It's just they haven't had anyone healthy all season, so they've never had a bench the way they had one last year. It was like the same 5 guys played together for, like, 500 minutes. That just hasn't happened. And it's just, in weird fits, Greg Monroe's playing a lot lately with Jonas Valanciunas out. Patrick McCaw played 18 minutes against the Grizzlies. He's bad. It's just kind of – and, like, CJ Miles until the last couple of games has been, like, completely off the map this season too. So they haven't had any sort of continuity there. And I think once Jonas gets back, they'll be okay from that perspective. And, like, the playoffs come around and we all – like, the bench was so vaunted last season. And it was like, oh, look how great this bench is. And then they got slaughtered at the playoffs and weren't very effective. Whereas like the starters are kind of foolproof, and I think in the playoffs that'll come through. And they've played games this season where they've played like the 26 to 30 minutes together and have completely killed teams. And that's the thing too, is the starters are so good and they're so versatile, and like Pascal Siakam has been so amazing this season that none of the matchups really worry me all that much. The Raptors have been pretty good, even though they're 1-2 against Boston and Milwaukee. One of the Milwaukee losses was weird, where neither Kawhi or Giannis played. I don't really count that game at all. There was another one where the Raptors should have won it, except Kyle Lowry was like 0 for 10 from the field and scored 0 points. And other than that, they kind of were the better team. They just kind of lost it at the end with a little extra juice. They would have had it. And like Boston, yeah, they beat him in that like crazy performative, hey, we're back game from Boston last week, but that's a very Boston game for this Celtics team to win. And I don't really like the Raptors starters still like killed Boston in that game. They were like a plus 20 net rating in like 26 minutes. So I think once they have their full complement of like really good players, they're just kind of a pretty good matchup for anybody. And that's not really a concern. It's just health right now, right? Like that's kind of it for me. Is there something like that you see from this Raptors team that you kind of look as a red flag?
No, I mean, honestly, I haven't paid close attention to them because one, they're really good, and that like isn't my most interesting thing. I like watching bad teams. Not always by choice, like if I see the Raptors are winning, I'm like, yeah, they're good. That's fine. But I'll turn on, like, I was like, oh, Magic and Hornets are playing. Oh, that's like what gets me excited. So no, like I haven't seen enough of the Raptors to definitely be worried about them. Like I'm always like, wow, it's kind of weird how good Pascal Siakam is. It doesn't seem fair that they just got this guy. Just didn't have to win a lottery, didn't have to do anything. Like this guy is now awesome, and you have him with
Grizzlies connection on that one. I remember being like kind of mad they took Siakam instead of Deontay Davis.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, Grizzlies used a lot of draft capital to acquire Deontay Davis.
Yeah, I'm dumb is what that says.
Yeah,
I was like, oh man, I want Scal or Deontay Davis with this pick, and they took Siakam, and I was like, At that point, like Masai had built up enough confidence that I was okay with it in like 2 days. But I remember being like sort of mad.
Well,
never as mad as I was when they took Valanciunas over Brandon Knight.
Well, so Masai does have like a pretty good track record. One of the ones that maybe wasn't a hit that we should talk about is Bruno Caboclo, who is now a Memphis Grizzly. How excited should I be? I'm pretty excited. It's like the only good thing that's happened in a while for the Grizzlies, who are falling apart.
Yeah, he's like their fourth best player now, so that's good.
You're joking, but it's true. He's easily in the upper. I assume, having not seen him play, I think was he on the Grand Vipers? I didn't see him play in the G League, but yeah, I would say he's definitely better than 5 or 6 guys on the Grizzlies right now.
Put it this way, he probably has the second highest upside of anyone on the Grizzlies right now, behind Jaren Jackson Jr. That
is probably true. I'm thinking hard. We have fellow Canadian Dylan Brooks, who is out for the season. I don't think his ceiling is super high. I'm pretty excited about Caboclo. How do you think he's going to fit in? Can he take over? Can he play the 3? I know he's supposed to be a stretch 4 in the new NBA, but the Grizzlies actually have front court players. They don't have other players.
Yeah, I don't really know what he's done since the Raptors traded him for Malachi Richardson last year. I know we've got I think he had a game where he had 10 points for the Kings, and I watched a bit of that, and it was pretty cool. He was drafted as a 3. Things have kind of changed since he was drafted 2 years away from 2 years away ago.
That was 4 years ago, right?
Yeah, I get 20.
Was it?
Yeah, he was 2014 draft, I think.
Okay, so it's a year after.
It's his 5th season. He should be not away anymore. Which he's been killing it in the G League, and that's kind of always been his thing. He's always been really good in the G League. I think he won, or he didn't win G League Finals MVP when they won the title. That was Pascal Siakam, but he did have 31 points in the title clinching game and 3 blocks or something crazy like that. He hit 6 threes. It was great. I remember that game was going on while the Raptors were playing the Bucks in Game 6, so that was kind of fun to keep tabs on. But yeah, Bruno's really fun. He's a kind of weird character, and his Instagram is always enjoyable, and he's got he seems like he's living his best life. Let me put it that way. I remember there was once an Instagram of him and Lucas Nogueira in McDonald's having a good time.
Okay, good. When you said he's living his best life, I was like, we've had some trouble with that as Grizzlies. Chandler Parsons living his best life, but then you said McDonald's. I was like, oh,
it's more of a wholesome best life.
Wholesome, innocent fun. That sounds good.
I think he might also have a kid. No, that's Bebe. Never mind. I don't think he has a kid. I think he's probably the godfather to Bebe's kid.
Where's Bebe Nogueira? I'd rather have him than Joakim Noah.
He's in Spain now.
Yeah, I'd much rather have that guy.
Yeah, Bruno's fun. He's when he does do things, it's oh, hey, that's interesting. And when you see him, I don't know if you ever go to games in person or not, because you're in Nashville, right?
Yeah, so. I only go to a couple games a year, and I've been going to less and less as they keep losing.
I've never seen a person in person who's more just staggering to look at. His arms
really?
Past his knees. He's a freaky looking dude, but I don't know. I always have fond memories of him. I went to the game. This is maybe just a Raptors fan sort of game that everyone kind of fixates on that no one else even knows happened. But this happened in the 2014-15 season. It was the first month of the year. The Raptors were 10-2. They were killing everybody at that point. And they took on the Bucks, and they beat the Bucks by 45. And Bruno had yet to play a game yet. And at the start of the second half, the Raptors were up 30, 35. And for the entire third quarter, the entire arena was chanting Bruno in place of defense when the Raptors were playing on D. And eventually he came into the fourth quarter. He had 8 points. He threw down an alley-oop dunk for his first career bucket and hit 2 threes. One of them was a pull-up, and everyone was like, oh, my God, what's happening here? Landry Fields also hit a 3 in that quarter, which, again, one of the most remarkable things to ever happen. And that's always kind of been – that was his peak, really. And that was 2 weeks into his career. But, no, he's the upside is there. I think he's kind of figuring it out. He did get sent home from the Brazilian national team, I think, over the summer or the summer before because he was mad that he got benched or something. He might think he's better than he actually is, but he's when he does stuff, it looks really cool. And when he doesn't do stuff, he's just kind of harmless. So I guess for a tanking team, if that's what the Grizzlies are now, that's kind of a perfect tanking player because he's not going to help you win games per se, but when he does contribute, it'll look fun and cool.
I don't think the Grizzlies are even tanking yet. I mean, right now that the Grizzlies are at their nadir, hopefully, the schedule has been very tough.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mentioned Dylan Brooks, who's out for the season. Kyle Anderson, who is their probably third best player, or fourth, I guess, if you think Jaren Jackson Jr. is always, good, along with Mark and Mike. Him being injured was like a death blow of like, this team really can't do anything without him. So I still don't think they're tanking. I think we're trying to finish exactly ninth worst. Like, we want to be ninth worst, so we have a 20% chance of jumping into the top four. Otherwise, the pick goes to Boston, and we're fine with it. So I think we're most. I think your most informed Grizzlies fans right now are pulling for ninth worst record. But I don't know. That might.
I know nothing about the draft. This is supposed to be a bad draft, right? Like, after the top couple guys.
I also know nothing about the draft, but I just figure, if you can pick top four, that seems good. I mean, it could be that Kenyon Martin year or the Mike Miller year. It was just a terrible draft. But you assume top four is good. But I guess the problem now in Grizzlies land, the front office, I think, has always been a bit overmatched and not good. And now I think JB Bickerstaff might be the worst coach in the NBA. I think he's definitely the worst coach the Grizzlies have ever had. He has no idea what he's doing. Which, if you go back ever and watch that Raptors game, they do the same thing every game and lose in the same way. Like, they take out Mike Conley 6 minutes into the first and third quarters every game, and I don't know if it's a health issue for Mike Conley. Like, originally it was like, oh, this makes sense. All right, they're going to bring Mike Conley in, to help the second unit at the start of the second. But the Grizzlies have been getting obliterated in the second halves of first quarters and third quarters, and they've lost 23 of 30 or so. They've lost like 14 of 15. At some point, you would stop doing this. We're like, you should really stop taking out Mike Conley. So in the Raptors game, the same thing. Like they actually, that one was they put in Shelvin Mack with 8 minutes to go in the third, and then the Raptors went on I think it was a 50-14 run or a 47-14 run. It was crazy, but it's the same thing every time. They put in Shelvin Mack at the 2 or the 1, and everything falls apart. But so that being said, I don't think the Grizzlies are tanking yet, although it's getting very, very close. But they're also about to hit this point where it might get hard to catch the ninth worst team, as they are currently like the 12th worst team. Like, it's like they're, or if I'm saying that confusingly, they're like 4 games away from where they want to be, and I'm not sure they can catch them unless those other teams decide they want to lose on purpose. So, truth be told, I am kind of excited to look forward to the Grizzlies try to finish exactly ninth from the bottom. I guess that's exactly 21st. We want to be. Or I guess, yeah. So that seems fun, but no, things are weird. Maybe we are tanking. Maybe Bruno will be fun in that tank. I guess I do want to ask you, Eric, as I wrap up. I'm not sure how much more.
My name is Sean, Keith. Come on.
Oh, Sean. I'm sorry. I think Eric Keen. Just stuck in my head.
Eric is
sorry.
my brother.
Yeah. Oh, you have a brother named Eric? Or
I
just
do,
you meant?
actually.
Oh, sorry, Sean.
Yeah.
This is what I get for scrolling through game logs while I speak.
That's fine. It's my fault for bringing up Eric Kareen.
Yeah.
Dastardly
that
Eric
guy.
Kareen.
No, Sean, do the Raptors have any plans to make a trade? Because their team has looked really, really good. But are there any things they're looking to upgrade? Specifically, would they be interested in a Marc Gasol?
I don't think they need center Kyle Lowry. I think they're set with just point guard Kyle Lowry. I think Gasol is probably a little bit too big of a fish. And the thing about the Raptors is they don't have a ton to trade. They don't have their pick this year because they traded it for Kawhi, which you're fine with. I'm not upset about that by any means. That makes it a little more difficult to maneuver this season, though. They have like some guys that maybe you'd like to consolidate, and I think that some people have kind of talked about this, like, they should, trade DeLon Wright and like Norman Powell or something to try to get something. And it's like, hey, DeLon's had a very bad season, and I don't really think he's kind of at anywhere near the peak of his value. He's going into restricted free agency. Like, you're not going to get much back for him, I don't think. And then there's just like nothing that sexy. No one wants CJ Miles because he's got a player option for next year. And like I said, he's been in the weeds all season long until like this past week. And he doesn't play defense very well. He's a lovely person, just not very good at defense or shooting, as it turns out this season, which is kind of his whole thing. And then like Norm has actually kind of showed some nice flashes lately. And he's also signed for 3 more years beyond this one at like $10 million a year. So I'm not sure any team is going to be like jumping all over that and giving you something exciting in return. So, no, I don't really think there's all that much. This is probably going to be like a buyout market team. The other way that I could see them making a move, but like I don't think any of these players are going to be available, is like they try to go super duper all in as opposed to the all in that they're already kind of in right now. And like maybe if like Bradley Beal became available, maybe they try to swindle Bradley Beal away from the Wizards. But like again, I don't know what they deal there. Like OG Anunoby would have to be in that deal. You probably have to put Siakam in there, which if you do that, like, do you even want to do that deal at that point? Because he's been so important to you this season. So I don't think there's going to be a deal. I don't really think there has to be a deal. Some people, like after the Celtics lost, that was like sort of the turning point that opened trade mania for everybody over the next couple of weeks in Raptorsville. And it was like, oh, what do we got to do? We got to get this guy. And it's like, they're pretty good. They're 35-13, and like they haven't been healthy at all this season. And like Kyle and Kawhi went like a whole month without playing with each other because they were hurt at different times. So they're probably a little bit better than what they are right now at 35-13, which is crazy to say, but it's probably true. And yeah, so I like probably like a depth big in case things get weird with Ibaka or Valanciunas. Like I think I trust them both to be good, but there's certain matchups they might not be awesome in, especially if one's hurt. They could kind of be exposed there. But even then, just play Siakam at 5, and I think you're good. So yeah, Gasol was like a thing last year. I was really into the idea of Raptors dealing for Gasol last year. Like Valanciunas was like, yeah, go deal Valanciunas for him. I'm not sure Valanciunas is like all that much worse than Gasol at this point, though. Like I don't know if that's like a notable upgrade.
So I'm a believer that Marc Gasol needs to have the invigorating, fresh breath of a winning culture put back into him.
Fair enough.
I mean, he started the year incredibly. He's playing some of the best ball of his career, honestly, for the first month of the season, like those first 17 games. But I feel like just the toxic. I mean, and some people blame him, especially Grizzlies fans blame him for what feels like a toxic culture or negative atmosphere around the Grizzlies right now. But I think nonstop lack of competence from the front office and coaching staff has got to wear on him. I kind of want to see him go somewhere else where he gets to be the 3rd or 4th or 5th option again and be incredible in that role. But again, I saw Raptors like ideas, rumors, but I can't come up with a trade that makes any sense. I mean, Jonas Valanciunas, CJ Miles, and OG Anunoby, and like a 2nd round pick, maybe. I mean, honestly, that would if you knew Marc Gasol would opt out if you asked him next year, that actually might be worth a little bit more to the Raptors to sweeten it with a pick or like a nicer pick. Because if you get off of CJ Miles and Jonas Valanciunas' money for next year, that might be enticing to the Raptors. But I'm saying I love Marc Gasol, and I'm not eager to trade him, but I'd have to consider if something comes up. But I do, if he goes to another team, it won't surprise me at all if he becomes reinvigorated again. And we're like, oh yeah, Marc Gasol is awesome.
Because he was awesome at the start of the year when they were good and like winning games. And I don't know, like I guess my question with him is like, is his health all in order? Because like, again, the Raptors are already dealing with Kyle Lowry, who's kind of getting into his 30s, and he's still very good and effective, but his health could go at any time. And I guess that's the concern with Gasol as well. And I don't know if like you bring in Gasol, you're already dealing with trying to woo Kawhi to make him stick around long term. That might just be a little bit too much of chemistry and uncertainty to kind of juggle in my brain.
Oh, yeah.
And like Valanciunas, man, he's been insanely good this season when he's played. Like he's putting up like I think like 27 and 16 per 36. He's been absurd when he's played. And the way him and Ibaka have worked together, like maybe you could improve on that with Gasol, just in terms of just like overall talent, but the way they've worked together, just sort of both playing center back and forth. Like, I'm not sure you could sell Gasol on coming off the bench at any point, but Ibaka is obviously better playing as a center, and he's great with the starters. So that'd be a difficult thing to work in as well. Valanciunas seems cool with playing center as a backup and playing 18 to 22 minutes a game. And like, that's been a really difficult bit of juggling, I think, of egos for Nick Nurse that he's been successful with. And that might jeopardize it all if you were to deal Valanciunas for Gasol and just throw that whole thing out of whack. So I am kind of cold on the idea. Again, last year I was all for it. I was like, get me Marc Gasol this minute, give up everything, give up all the stuff we would have traded for Kawhi Leonard. But not so much anymore, I don't think.
Yeah, that completely makes sense.
Any other stray thoughts, Raptors, Grizzlies, Vancouver related before we wrap this thing up?
No, man, I wasn't a Grizzlies fan until they announced their move to Memphis. That's when they because I was living in Nashville. I was at college at Florida State. But when the Vancouver Grizzlies announced they were moving to Memphis, I was like an NBA agnostic with no real team, and I was like, oh, they're coming to Tennessee. Now I'll cheer for that team. That'll be my team. So yeah, I have no memories of the Naismith Cup years of the Vancouver versus Toronto.
Do you
rivalry.
know who the current title holder of the Naismith Cup is?
Is that the last team that won? Is that how does it work, or is it like a cumulative win-loss?
Okay, it's a trick question. It's my favorite, maybe my favorite Raptors trivia question. So the Naismith Cup, for people who don't know, was a game played between the Grizzlies and Raptors every year. This is the regular season game, and the winner would hold the Naismith Cup, and that was great. And the Raptors, I think, won it most years. I think the Grizzlies won it a couple times as well. But then when the Grizzlies moved, they started doing this thing where the Naismith Cup was between the Raptors and like a European team. Oh. And the last one was held, I believe, in 2005, and it was won by Maccabi Tel Aviv on an Anthony Parker three-pointer. And Anthony Parker then signed with the Raptors the following offseason. Yeah, he destroyed the Raptors, took the Naismith Cup, and then got a deal out of it. And then he is still, I guess, one of the defending holders of the Naismith Cup. It has not been played since, which is, again, one of my favorite bits of Raptors trivia.
Well, that was a fun bit of trivia. Hopefully the Grizzlies don't end up back in Vancouver after this multi-year slide continues.
No, that'll be the Pelicans.
Yeah.
or
poor Pelicans.
Pelicans. Yeah, I feel so bad for them, man. God. Did they at least win today? They beat Memphis today,
They beat
right?
Memphis today. Yeah, they beat Memphis behind Jahlil Okafor's 20-10.
That's a low point for Memphis, no?
No, the Grizzlies have conceded like a 20-something point run in now 4 consecutive games. Like the Pelicans went on a late third quarter, early fourth quarter 26-5 run in this one. And again, the Grizzlies scored 85 points against the Pelicans, who average 116 points per game. That's the lowest score the Pelicans have allowed this season, next to the 95 points that the Memphis Grizzlies scored against them the last time they played 2 weeks ago. Yeah, no, things were bad. We should be done because I'm sad.
All right, well, we can wrap it there. Keith, man, thank you so much for taking part in this Locked On Raptors Fast Break Breakfast crossover. I always have the hardest time saying your podcast name. It's really hard.
It's really hard to say out loud if you don't practice it. Like, you don't understand it's going to be hard to say out loud until someone's like, and that's Keith from Fastbreakbreak. And they're like, yeah, it's hard. You didn't know it was going to be hard. It doesn't look hard. It's simple words, but it is kind of tricky to say. Yeah, well, Sean.
This is the reason why I think now it makes sense to me that when you intro your podcast, you kind of have this like staccato that you intro it with, and I like it a lot. I think it's very good stylistically. Thanks. But I think was it born out of the difficulty of saying the name of the podcast quickly?
I don't know. I just think when we were discussing the name, the first night at the bar, we were like coming up with a name. We're like, yeah, that's definitely the name. We should go with that. And we said it a few times. We're like, that does not roll off the tongue. Like that. Somehow it just sticks there. But then I guess we got over it kind of quickly. Yeah. Well, Sean, thanks for having me on Locked On Raptors. Really appreciate it.
Of course, man. Make sure you're checking out both of our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, all the places you get your podcasts. I'm on Twitter at Woodley Sean. Keith, you're just at Fastbreakbreak.
Fastbreakbreak. That's the one.
All right, man. This was fun. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it. All right, thanks to Sean Woodley for having me on Locked On Raptors and for agreeing to let me post it here. If you want to support our show, you can do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. If you are buying tickets, do that at SeatGeek.com. Use our code FastBreakBreak for $20 off your first order. It's the best way to buy tickets to anything. SeatGeek.com. Use our code FastBreakBreak. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. FastBreakBreak. All right, you guys are the best. Thanks for listening. And remember, breakfast is the most important thing.
Yeah, never apologize for being G&G. Fast break, man. You understand?